personalities. On the other hand, kind of being that opinionated, blunt, what you see is what you get. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I like candor. The only thing I'll say is that working for you? Does it turn people off? Does it maybe send the wrong message? For instance, Susan, I have the right lady here, Susan may have a lot of turnover, so is she not doing a lot to build her team up with her bluntness? All right, Neil, team player, engineer of record. He attends all the meetings, does all the meeting minutes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Here's a situation that we've got this great person, but now all of a sudden the project's behind schedule. So we're going to have to accelerate and maybe work nights and weekends and bring on double crews, and we're going to have to change everything. How does that go over with a guy like Neil?
Not very good.
I like things to be ordered. It's you have that plate, the separator plate. I don't want my potatoes touching my carrots and my meatballs. I mean, why you'd even have that together, I don't know. But what's that?
Makes it.
What's that?
Just a comment on that.
Gotcha. All right, what about James is the bull in the china shop. He hits the job site, he moves around like the Tasmanian devil.
We should change his name to Paul.
Yeah, he's an A.
He's an A.
Or D, you mean?
A.
Oh. No. People also have fun with the D one too, if you get my drift. Actually, what's interesting with this one,
Could you elaborate?
just saying.
There's a C one too.
Actually, I was going to say.
Wow.
I thought when I heard you say that, this one is kind of a trick question because.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Exactly, we're here. But when you look at this, as the project manager, he constantly slams the field for not moving fast enough. When they do move fast, he bashes their quality.
He's a C.
He's a DC. And some of you, how many of you here had a profile that looked like a U? That is the high DC profile for a lot of project managers have that trait.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of supers have that. The only thing I will say is that can be very challenging. I want it done now, but I want it done perfectly. The D's will say, look, I don't care how you get to the solution, just get there. It creates somewhat of a challenging environment. You want me to go faster? You want me to do it perfect? Yes. Once again, I think we all get it. No one wants to do bad quality, but we just have to be careful not to get also what I would call micromanaging with this profile. Here, move out of the way. Let me show you how to do it and kind of come over the top. So, little great comment, but it was a trick question. Item number 6, Sarah, move a shaker, CEO. What's that? So what is Sarah?
D.
Yeah, she is kind of probably a DI to some extent because got that kind of vision, and actually I have a client that is a Sarah. He talks to me all the time. He's like, Craig, I want to change the construction industry. Now, he's a $30 million a year business in New York City. I'm not knocking the size of business, but he has these grandiose visions. His people go, we got to make payroll this week, so tell me how we do that, Mr. Genius. So he's at 30,000 feet. His people are all at ground level saying, but we got to make payroll. We got to pay the subs. Well, I want to just change the world and cure cancer. So high DI in this case. And then lastly, Joseph, 15 years, never one to light up the scoreboard, but he consistently performs on a regular basis. So More Electric is getting ready to unveil a new strategic plan that will completely change every process in his department. So what is Mr. Joseph?
S.
I say he's an SC. Probably, he's got, once again, he's consistent, he's thorough, probably very detailed, checks the boxes, but once again, we could cause some upheaval when we just say, do everything different now. That causes a lot of folks anxiety. Some people in this room, if I said, hey, tomorrow we're going to do Benning 2.0, we're changing everything. Some of you would say, all right, that sounds exciting. Some of you would kind of start to feel that little feeling in the pit of your stomach, and you'd go, I've been doing it this way for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. Why are we changing this stuff? I just got used to the old way we've been doing it. That's the thing you've got to realize. So folks, all of this comes down to several important questions you have to ask yourself. If I asked you to look at your customers and do the same test with them, where would they kind of fit on the DISC spectrum? And then lastly, how about you? Does your personality mesh with them? Or is it kind of like the Republicans and Democrats in Congress? We're just fighting with one another. We're not getting anything moving forward. That might be the case, but we've got to look at things differently and go, look, I can't control their personality. They're a high D. I have nothing I can do, but I can change my approach. And still get things accomplished, but change my approach. It's a lot easier to change me than to change everybody else in Benning, or Publix for that matter, or any other customer. The other thing that you've got to be thinking about is this concept of, just looking back at how we communicate once again. I talk about the implicit meaning, and as you all said before, the body language, when that person on the other end of the phone goes, fine, and that's probably the worst answer you could possibly ever get. But it all creates this concept of attitudes. Attitudes, one, these are all about emotions. These are the things that we do have a major influence on. We are a people business. So we affect the attitude of our people, our crews, our teammates, and how does that create strong teamwork and camaraderie? Once again, we also want it to be contagious. Good attitude is contagious. We've all had bad bosses. We've also been on bad projects, and we've had situations, I too, I've had projects in my previous life where you could tell the superintendent just had a negative Nelly attitude, and everybody on that job site, when they walked in the room, it was like, it just sucks the energy out of it. Once again, how can I even get to that good communication when we're starting off on such a negative foot? Also, I go back to our first comment on listening. And this is that moment of reflection again. Are you a good listener? Or do you have those roadblocks up? Do you listen for what's being said, what's not being said? Do you jump those, called roadblocks, or as I have on one of the next slides, jump to conclusions because we're encoding or filtering? And these are some of the items up here. Roadblocks to listening. I'm bored. The old adage or the joke that I use, and it's probably inappropriate, but I'll say, I've got ADHD, so it doesn't require me to pay attention. That's an excuse. It's, once again, some of it, am I just not listening and I'm where I should be? Even internal meetings in my own company, I'll check out, that's not fair to the speaker, especially if they're trying to get something across or drive a message. Some cases, we're just overloaded, we're at saturation and we can't get any further, get any deeper. Too many distractions or things in our periphery that kind of keep us. So once again, do we do those things to extract those distractions? For my friend in the back there. So how to do this? Sharpen your listening skills. First and foremost, I know some of you in here will probably say you're a great multitasker. How many in here are great at multitasking? Me too. At least I think I am. My wife has this habit, and she knows it drives me absolutely BS crazy, to the point that I'm like, Liz, don't do that. But this is what happens. We'll be talking, or I'll be driving down the road, and we're like, oh, Liz, let me tell you about what happened today. And she'll do this. Uh-huh. Yeah, what were you saying? And I won't talk. And she's like, I thought you were going to tell me about your day. I'm like, when you're done texting. or Facebooking. It's like, I can do two things at once, and I'm sure all of us in here have said that. And I'm like, nope, because you know what it says to me is I'm only good enough for 50% of you. That's simply it. I'm being a little bit kind of annoying, but imagine one of your crew members comes in. Folks, I'm going to tell you, you have a situation where you can do the right thing or the wrong thing, and it goes like this. Someone comes into your job site trailer day and says, hey boss, I got an important question. And you're behind your laptop, maybe banging away on RFI or doing a weekly update, or you're looking at job cost information. You go, yeah, go ahead. I can do two things at once. No, you can't. You can say one of two things. Can you come back in 30 seconds because I got to send this email? Or, what you got for me, my friend? It's a binary decision. This or that, not this and that. And I know you're saying, but Greg, I can do two things at once. Not as leaders, folks. You can't do two things at once. It's saying you're only good enough for 50% of me right now. And not to mention, the person's kind of like, wait, are you talking to me? Or, have you ever, I've been in the airport many times where those guys will have the Bluetooth in their ears, and I'll be sitting there, just kind of reading a book, and I'll hear someone talking. I'm like, hey, well, what you need? And they'll be like, I'm not talking to you. And I'm like, I'm sorry, dude, I don't know. But that's a lot of it. It's like you're banging away and they're kind of talking to themselves. No, keep going, keep going. Well, I don't know if you're formulating a response to me or to your text message. Don't do that. Let's not do that. That's a distraction. It also doesn't show interest. Lastly, we talk about jumping to conclusions. I love the movie Office Space, mainly because it has consultants in it. God knows there's not enough consultant movies out there. The idea of living in a patient world. We're not patient right now. We are incredibly impatient and, more importantly, results-oriented. So when people are trying to get to, hey, come on, just tell me what you got. Because we're trying to fill up, but some folks need to go through that. When you go back to the personalities, a lot of people are talking themselves through solutions while they're telling you information. But if you're a high D, you're just kind of doing this. And you say it with your body language. You say it with your mannerisms. And you're kind of doing this. The eyes are rolling in the back of their head. I can be very guilty of that, even in my own organization. Just because I have a lot of young folks. I've seen it, done it. So I go, yeah, I know, you're a client. Not that I'm rude to my folks, but I quickly jump to the solution. And I'm sure a lot of us do that as well. As superintendents that have been around the block a few times, we go, hey boss, I'm having trouble with this sub right now. And yeah, what you're going to want to do is you want to call their boss, you're going to do this, you want to do this. And they're like, okay, but I didn't even tell you what the problem was yet, because we're so quick. So letting people also, don't necessarily tell them the solution, walk them through the solution. You'll get better results. And then lastly, having them own good communication. So lastly, when we talk about questioning, and this is a little bit like that CSI that I talked about. Think of yourselves like a detective. You're in that room where they got the single light bulb hanging down, and you're kind of doing those probative questions. It's once again, are we getting the answers that we want or the answers we need? That's part of this equation. Some cases, people will just tell you, sure, I'll do whatever you want. Okay, we're good. You said yes. Was that really yes? Or was that I'm just tapping out right now because I can't deal with it anymore? I have clients right now that when I've done interviews, they've said, boy, Steve in estimating or Joe in our field, he will just wear on you. My father-in-law is bipolar, and he will argue with you. He's very religious, he's very political, and you cannot disagree with him. And not in just like a traditional sense, you just cannot. He will grind you down. And finally to the point you go, fine, you're right, Jim, whatever you want. Okay, so we're agreeing, Not really, but I just shut you up. Once again, are you that person that's so argumentative that you just muscle people down? or you don't really listen to other arguments. I've got this case study here, but I want to kind of focus on something else real quick. If you all can this is a 4-minute video, which is a perfect segue to lunch. I'm going to need you to come forward because the sound is not the best. So you can bring your chair up. Like I said, it's 4 minutes. It's not that big of a deal. But I want you to observe. How many of you saw the movie Apollo 13? Now, some of you may not have seen it. It came out in 1995. And once again, I'm also starting to realize, boy, oh boy, that was a long time ago. You know you're getting older. But Apollo 13, we're not watching the whole movie. But Apollo 13 obviously came after Apollo 11, which we probably know the story there. However, if you know about Apollo 13, you know that, and also saw the movie, you know that this didn't exactly have a successful conclusion. We were trying to go back to the moon to land again, but it didn't work out. And hence, we have Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Ed Harris, you name it. There's and not to mention Tom, not Tom Hanks, but Ron Howard's brother, that's in all the movies. He's actually in here as well. But my point that I want you to do is there are 4 to 5 specific scenes. And there are characters that I want you to look at, A, how they communicate across the groups. B, how do they lead? C, more importantly, do they focus on solutions? And lastly, how do they evolve? Once again, we're not watching the whole movie. I know that you guys are disappointed in that. This is 4 minutes, and I've taken clips and distinctly put them together. There are a couple folks that I want you to watch for. The first one is the Grumman guy. There's a scene almost right out the chute. The Grumman guy, if you don't know what Grumman is a subcontractor to NASA. They basically help create the rocket. So, for lack of a better word, subcontractor. But watch for the Grumman guy. Ed Harris is, if you don't know Ed Harris, he was also in that show Westworld recently, but he's the guy who's going to have spiky, a crew cut. He's kind of mission control commander. Look at his personality. There's also what I call the wet blanket. And you'll know him when you see him, and I want you to tell me who you think the wet blanket is when we get to that point. And then lastly, we'll call the last person MacGyver. And I want to see if you know, if you can identify MacGyver in this. And it's not literally the character. MacGyver, for my young friends in the room, was a show in the 80s. You go, okay, good, just want to make sure. I know some of my references go right over it. So watch for that. So if you want to come forward,
They were all on the Apollo?
me too. Wait a second, what's going on here? All right, that's not what I wanted.
Def Leppard.
That's Def Leppard.
That's impressive.
No. The only problem is I can't get what I want on the screen.
I sit on Sasser's lap.
Here comes that one.
Okay, you just kind of ignored Joe.
Huh.
There's a lot more.
Okay. You need help?
No.
No, you sit down and you watch this. Anything to get out of anything, I swear to God.
I'm not that bad, guys. Let me.
That was like the most dad thing to say.
I can't find my mouse now. So what's going on here?
Hey, here, you want to take his chair? You want to take his chair?
That's all you got?
Yeah, he thought he was gone for a while.
What a big no.